play. This is just a simple 20-second lead-in as ads are playing for those who are patiently waiting the start of yet another episode on a Thursday night of the CarrGuy SixFan show. And usually this is the part where I introduce myself. I say I'm Grant Tommy. I'm straight SixFan on YouTube. I'm SixFan of the operation. And then I would turn it over to this red-haired gentleman, and he would tell you he's CarrGuy of the operation. But Jason is actually flying to SEMA right now, so he's somewhere over the Rocky Mountains, about ready to land in Vegas. And his fill-in co-host tonight, who is part of the Get Out and Drive podcast, one of our great partners, unfortunately has a had a life event pop up, and so prayers to John and his wife as they sort through that. But so I guess tonight we will rebrand this a guy in SixFan show. So with that, I'll turn it over to our gracious guests and let the both of them introduce themselves, just in case somebody's catching this for the very first time.
I'm Derek from Vice Grip Garage. I'm the janitor and about 5% of the brains.
Well, I'm Jessica from Vice Grip Garage, and I don't think I'm 95% of the brains, but if he wants to take that on, then sure.
It's getting close to Christmas. I'm trying to, butter her up a little bit.
Oh, gosh.
Well, as I mentioned, so we have this partnership with the Get Out and Drive podcast. Jason double dips. He's the co-host here. He's co-host over there. And I tune into their podcast here and there, and they have this series called the Backseat series, and which basically just means their producer hits the record button when they don't think they're live, and then they wind up talking about random things that they don't realize is being recorded, and then they upload some of those episodes. So the last episode was all about, well, they were just exchanging stories from their youth about kind of that, how did you become a throttle jockey? What were some of the, well, frankly, dumb things you did in your youth that were all influenced by speed and, anything from riding down hills in Tonka trucks on their knees to wagons and everything. So I guess I want to start there with a little more fun, a little more informal question. But I guess Derek, why don't you kick us off? Do you have any good battle wound stories from your youth involving four wheels and a bright idea?
Yeah, quite a few of them. I don't know if I can tell a couple of them, but it's just because she doesn't know I get in trouble.
Oh, geez.
No, I mean, see, I started riding motorcycle when I was 7, and I can't tell you how many skinned knees I got out of that. That was an experience, and elbows. Eventually, my mom just gave me the tweezers so I could pick the rocks out of my kneecaps myself because she got tired of it. Then moved on to go-karts for a while, and then got back into dirt bikes and did the motocross thing for a while. I had some pretty big over-the-handlebars accidents there, and thankfully, I've never wrecked on a street bike, I don't think.
Mm-mm.
But most of my accidents have been snowmobile-related or dirt bike-related. A lot of it is, I bet you can't jump that. Oh, okay. Well, watch this. Well, I didn't make it, pretty much. But then that, turned into cars as soon as I got old enough. And I mean, as far as memories with you and I, we would, any day that was icy or snowy or rainy,
Yep.
we would spend, well, it was probably $15 in gas back then, which
Yeah,
is
then
like
it was like
50
nothing.
today. But we would go ruin a set of tires on a Saturday night easily.
Oh, yeah.
And then we did a bunch of allegedly street racing, drag racing back in the day with my Camaro. And I had a big block pickup, Chevy pickup.
Yeah.
And
the Blue Goose, the old Ford truck, we would smash that into snowbanks more times than I can remember.
Yeah. Well, we used to intentionally jump it. We would go into the Black Hills of South Dakota, find these fire trails. Yeah, we're like, ooh, we got butterflies in that one. So I would back up, and then we'd hit it again at like 70, which, by the way, if you hit a tree doing 70, and we would jump this thing repeatedly just into the ground and then drive it home.
Yeah.
Nothing happened.
It was so much fun, though. It was a blast.
Yeah, there's hundreds and hundreds of stories like that. And I think I kind of introduced you to that, didn't I?
Yeah. I can only remember, I guess my first experience with anything like that was dune buggies, which was actually before you, but that was the only thing I can remember is my really good friend growing up, Jen, her dad had a couple of dune buggies. And so they would take me along with them, and we kind of got into that a little bit. And that's really where I started deciding that I really kind of liked that kind of stuff. And then I met Derek, and the rest is history, really.
Yeah. For me, it's always finding any sort of motorsports event that gives you the butterflies for the first time. The feeling of like when I just did the stadium super trucks, when you're 30 feet in the air doing, you know, whatever, 70, you have this moment where it's like slow motion where you turn sideways and look at the crowd and you realize you're floating and you're going, I am not in control right now. Like this feels very
panic ensue at that point.
But when you land, you go, that I want to do it again, you know? So for me, it's always trying to find new motorsports that give me that feeling of just thrill and adventure, and I could potentially wreck, I guess.
Yeah. Thank goodness you haven't yet.
Yeah.
It'd be kind of interesting, like if you really break it down. It probably looks like a bell curve, but there's like just right at the peak, there's like that moment of calm, like and observing like everything's going on, but everything's like adrenaline ramping up, and then like oh shit coming down. Like there's probably and then you're like, and that's 3 seconds or 2.7 seconds. Like all these like 17 things happen over the course of 2.
Yeah, it's really weird. I mean, it's like you feel like you're on Delta, like you should order a drink or ask for some pretzels or something when you're in the air. Check the gauges and stuff, check the phone, see what's going on, and then it's just bam, you hit the ground and you're back to reality. But no, it's a lot of fun. We like thrill in moderation, I guess.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it, definitely.
Well, I mean, it sounded like you were using the proper tool for the early experiments. I mean, the Ford twin I-beam suspension's made to just absorb giant jumps. It sounds like you had the right tool there for the early escapades. But
it was impressive for a two-wheel drive truck. I'll give it that.
Jessica, my next question is going to be directed at you, because the last time we had Derek on, it was just Derek, and he was kind of talking about the origin story of doing the YouTube thing, and it was kind of based on your encouragement, if I recall, why don't you just give this a shot and why don't you try it? But take me back to the very beginning and tell me, or tell the crowd here, like, what did you really think though when this all started?
I mean, you know, to be completely honest, did I think we would end up here today? Absolutely not. Definitely not. But yeah, he's right. He's always just been like a joke teller, a really funny, humorous guy, and always really into cars. And that was kind of the evenings and weekend thing that we would do. And I just told him one day, I'm like, you know, you should film this and just see what happens with it. And for a long time he said no, but then he took my advice and filmed an episode. I think it was the 69 Camaro was the first one, and put it on YouTube. And I mean, it just went crazy. So here we are now. And no, I never thought that it would be this. I guess
I still don't know if she was telling me out of traditional support or more of like, yeah, honey, you go do that. That's sure.
Well, the day that he called me and said like that he quit his job and this was full time, that day I was a little bit like, oh no, oh gosh, okay, nope, what? I was definitely worried a little bit, I guess you could say, but I mean, things were good, and they've just been progressively getting better, and I mean, we're so grateful, and we thank everybody for their part and they've had in this to help us get here too, because we can't do it alone. So
yeah, that's one thing we didn't know. It was the unknown. You don't know what you don't know, right? So like, we didn't know what kind of viewers we would attract or how that even works. Like, we didn't know what demographics meant or any of this stuff. And by the grace of God, and it's the same as your fans, the car community, I mean, we are absolutely blessed with the greatest people that enjoy the shows and comment and like and watch and support all of us, and whatever channels it may be or podcasts. They're the nicest people.
They really are. We meet a lot of great people, and a lot of people that have really become like close friends that we hang out with on a day-to-day basis, honestly. So it's really neat just to see what it was and what it's become, and we're excited to see, you know, what's still to come.
Oh no, I'm carrying pens in my pocket. That's how old I'm getting.
I noticed those earlier. We were at the store and you were talking to somebody, and I was like staring at them in your pocket, thinking, like, what are you doing?
Didn't happen.
Yeah, you talk about the car community, and it is, what's I'm going to butcher the catchphrase, but like 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon or whatever. But it's like in the car community, we need our own catchphrase for that same explanation, because it's like, I mean, I'm still in like the 3,700 subscribers here, but the like how quickly I ran into the likes of someone like Alex Taylor, you guys, Flying Sparks Garage, Emily and Aaron, and it's just amazing how it's like you're really not that far from connecting with people in this modern day. Like 5 states away, 2 time changes away, things like that.
Yeah.
So it's insane. Well, since the last time, it's been about 2 years, I think, since the last time you were on, Derek, and of course, a lot has happened in that time frame. You were mentioning snow. Maybe now you probably worry more about getting bread and milk in Central Tennessee when forecasters think snow might maybe show up, but actually doesn't. So I'm guessing lifestyle has changed quite a bit with the move, but maybe just explain a little bit about, there was the Minnesota lifestyle and there's Tennessee lifestyle now, and what's been like the biggest change since moving down there?
Yeah, sure. So I'm one of the very few of my family and your family to escape the northern Midwest, I guess we call it, the most extreme Midwest, South Dakota, North Dakota, Minnesota, kind of that area. My family's heavily rooted there. They're all farmers and ranchers, with the exception of a few. Your family's heavily, same thing.
Yeah.
Right. So I always grew up thinking I was going to be a farmer and rancher. That's just the way my family tree is, but I'm not good at being someone I'm not. And that's really tough. And I found that out. I had a really good career. I think I was very good at it, but like Jessica was explaining earlier, I'd come home and throw my overalls on and do something else. Well, when that really started taking off, it was counterproductive business-wise, because 4 months out of the year, it's negative 397. Everything's frozen to the ground.
Oh, yes.
Your beard turns into ice and you can't open your mouth. Your eyelids are frozen shut. I went 2 years. I would run a little propane heater, warm my hands up just enough where I could barely feel them, turn it off because it was too loud for the camera, turn the camera on, work for like 40 seconds until the wrenches froze in my hand, and then turn the heater back on. And one day we were just sitting down after Power Tour going, boy, reminiscing, Tennessee and Alabama and North Carolina, South Carolina, just beautiful, the hills and the trees. And then it was like, wait a minute, we don't have to live here. We can actually move whenever we want. Like, we don't have to ask mom, I think we could do this. So, and then it was kind of strategic from there. We wanted to move to where we were still in the country, because we both love that lifestyle of just not necessarily the privacy, but just knowing that, your land is your land and you can use it how you want. You can do what you want, and you have space between neighbors, and just the country, the views, the trees and the ponds and all this. So we were lucky enough to be able to find a property down south, and it's working out because I'm able to produce much more content for the YouTube channel. Normally now, back in Minnesota, I'm already doing snow blowers and microwaves because that's all we had. So that's been a blessing too. So it's been a good move.
Absolutely.
For us overall, and the kids are really enjoying it too. So
well, and oh, by the way, for the state of Tennessee to get free, I guess, advertising here, the thanks to Jack Daniels, the no state income tax isn't a bad perk either there in the old state of Tennessee. But Jess, you talked about when Derek informs you, you know what, it's time to quit my job, go full time, and how that was a big gut check moment for you and the family. So two-part question. A, what were you doing at the time, like as a job? And then B, what were some of the early, I guess we'll call them survival strategies or things that you felt like, okay, well then if we're gonna do this, like what was one of those top things on the list?
So that's a good question. At the time, I was working as a special education teacher at an elementary school. So the day that he called me, he actually called me at work on my break and informed me that, so we had actually a couple of months before had a conversation about the possibility of him maybe quitting and, potentially doing YouTube full time. But it was kind of just a conversation that we had, nothing definitive. So when he called me that day, he just said, "All right, well, I did it." Like, "You did what?" Like, "Well, I quit my job, so we're in it now." And I thought he was joking at first, but no, it was the real deal. So, like I said, of course, panic a little bit at first, but I also know that Derek doesn't do anything just part way, not halfway. He gives everything he's got to anything that he's into, and he won't let himself fail. So I knew that if he was confident enough to quit his job, that he was dead set on making this happen. So, of course, I stayed at my job still for a while. I loved my job. I loved what I did. But then it did get to a point where it got so busy so quickly. He really needed my help. And then that's when we kind of started talking about moving and everything. So that was when we decided it'd be best for me to probably quit my job and help him more full time as well. And then that's when the move kind of started coming into play too. And we came out here. So yeah, that's kind of where that whole thing came up.
A lot of it was just, the other question was like, what were kind of the priorities? Like anybody else, we're the American family. We have bills just like everybody else. Right. And we had 3 kids. And so it was a lot of strategery, just like everybody else, what's coming in, what's going out, how can we tighten the bootstraps? And and a lot of people don't know this, but the first 2.5 years of my YouTube channel, I didn't make a penny. Mm-hmm. I spent every episode was funded by our savings. And then I would sell that car to replace the money, hopefully make a little bit more to go buy another car. Yeah. And we would continually do that. Well, when you don't have a steady income coming in, all of a sudden you need to make more per car. So that's when I started getting better cars with more margins and things like this. But it really helped me be more creative and focus on, okay, this is no longer a hobby. I'm going to have to get pretty good at this quickly because my family has to come first. And I think that additional fire under my buttocks, so to speak, really helped, because that's when I kicked it into high gear and we started doing weekly videos or a couple a week. And it actually really motivated me to just provide, just primitively provide.
Yeah.
Well, and as the story would continue on, obviously that propels into your very own Motor Trend series now, which has just recently debuted. And I've only taken in, I think, 2 of the 4 episodes out there. But you talked about the cars with better margins, because I'm finding, yes, my 1978 Fairmont and 1979 Pontiac Grand Prix might not be like most liked cars out there, I guess. It's weird. So I know the pilot episode was, of course, a Ford Mustang. So it's really hard to find anything Ford Mustang from 65 through 69, really. That's not $8,000 for a clapped out shell with nothing in it. But that was, I've enjoyed that episode quite much. So let's talk about just the whole endeavor of what Roadworthy Rescues is all about, and kind of just, I guess, early returns.
Yeah, so there's 2 ways I've heard it explained from fans and new fans of Roadworthy that don't know what Vice Grip Garage is. And I guess they make sense. The most common one I hear is it's just Vice Grip Garage with better editing and cameras. And the other one I keep hearing is Roadkill 2.0. And I think that's the easiest way to explain it is I do the same thing I do on the Vice Grip Garage YouTube channel, which is buy cars, typically sight unseen, and through however possible with whatever limited resources and time I have, try to get that thing running, driving, and on the road, and not always necessarily have a plan. other than to just save it from being a parts car, going to the crusher, or just rotting into the ground. This season, we've already given one car away to an aspiring mechanic. There's a lot of other good things coming up, helping people in the rest of the season. But yeah, they're unique vehicles. They're really unique vehicles. And the show does allow me to have a little bit more of a budget, obviously, and find some really cool things that I've always wanted to do. Like we have a tow truck. That was a really fun episode, and it's a useful tool for the show. But probably not something I would have necessarily done because of winches and cables and all of the other stuff. But yeah, it's finding derelict old cars, getting them running on a budget, and sending them down the road, or maybe sort of keeping some of them.
I was going to say, there haven't been that many that went down the road since you had them. They're just here.
Yeah. I fall in love with a lot of them.
In the Mustang episode, so Jess, hat tip to you for the skinny pedal work with the truck.
Yeah, thank you.
The thing that kept crossing my mind was like, so is Motor Trend replanting these poor people's grass? Like
they literally did, yes.
Yeah, okay.
They definitely. It was a sweet old lady. Oh, she was the most adorable lady ever. Yes, and we made sure her yard was fixed up just right for her because I did put a couple marks in the grass.
What we don't, that's the only, and it's not even a negative thing. I get it. The show's made for TV. So whatever TV show there is, you have 44 minutes to tell a story. What was
entertain, right? Like
right,
good footage. Like you're not going to like, well, we can't, we got to edit this out. Like, no.
Yeah. So we're getting used to that. But the story on that Mustang goes way, way deeper. It was a one owner car. The lady was probably in her 80s.
At least, yeah.
Early 90s. Her name was Peggy, just a doll. And when I was working on a car, she would sit there and tell stories about, I remember going to the dealership in the order form, and I picked out that clock, and I picked out the map light, and my husband and I argued about the color and all of this stuff. So there was a lot of, my cat's knocking on the door.
Our cat is literally knocking.
So there was a lot of like personal and emotional attachment to that vehicle, and she didn't want to see it rot in the trees anymore. And it was a tough job, but that's really what motivated me to fight through that episode and get it done. And there was a lot of work that wasn't shown. I worked on that thing night and day. But it turned out great, and she was thrilled. Jessica and I drove it over to her and let her look at it. She was just beaming.
Yeah.
Happy with it. So that really helps motivate us when we see stories like that kind of.
Those are definitely our favorite ones where we see those things come together.
I can certainly relate to that. I mean, my current project car, my 79 Pontiac Grand Prix, you get a new project car, and the Car Guy thing is like, you got to come up with that clever magazine. We're about the same age, but that project car name, project rated X, or just whatever. It's like, okay, it's an AMX, I get it. Like it's not that clever. Like, and so I was wrestling with, okay, what am I gonna name this project car? And but nothing was super clever enough that I'm like, that's the one that I wound up just naming it after the previous owner. It was a one-owner car, and same thing. She was telling me stories about what it meant to her, and she just had kind of fallen on tough times. And I mean, she definitely left a piece of herself in that car, as evidenced by the fake fingernail that I found when I was cleaning out the and many cigarette butts. No, so I get it. I think your story is very relatable to me. But if we're sticking with the road, were you gonna?
Well, I was gonna say I agree with you on car names. Like it doesn't matter. It's when we see the vehicle, it's like a aura or a feeling. It's just like, example on Roadworthy Rescues. We had a 51 Chevy that I did, and we named it Bandit, not because Smokey and the Bandit or like Bandit or whatever. There was an old terrier dog named Bandit that just fell in love with me and just followed me everywhere on the property, and was sitting in the car and climbing on the car and wanted to ride in the car. And the car just became banned it because the dog liked the car so much. It didn't necessarily have to do with the previous owner or anything clever. It just fit the car. We named the truck Longmire because it was a long bed and it was old Western country. And we were into that TV show back then, so it's like, it's just a feeling you get on the vehicle for names, for us anyway.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if I actually closed the loop on where I started there, but I wound up naming my car after her. I called the car Lori. That was the name of the previous owner, and I spell it different, of course, because it'd be kind of really weird just to flat out name it Lori, but spelled the same. But so the Roadworthy Rescues, this new endeavor, I think, the average consumer oftentimes forgets to put on a show like that. There's like a shooting schedule. They, of course, then go in there, live in their bubble, probably to edit. And then there's they roll out a season. And then I think it's really easy to forget. It's like, okay, this stuff was all shot back in, I don't know, April or whatever. But I also get the sense that, like, when we interviewed Steve Darnell, he kind of gave some insights to, like, the Discovery folks were really like, no, you got to pump out a car like in 2 weeks. So I guess my question is not necessarily, you don't have to say how the sausage is made, but what has been the most eye-opening thing for you going through somebody else's production schedule to do what you were already doing?
Yeah, the biggest thing for me, the biggest change, I guess, is we work 7 days a week regardless, other than probably our birthdays, anniversary, and Christmas. Other than that, we're working. So I'm not shy to work or opposed to work. I knew that wasn't going to be the issue. What I had to get used to was we take a car from Jessica pulling it out of the trees to driving on the road doing the beauty shots in 5 days. And that's it. I have 5 days. So it's not an 8-hour workday. It's not a 15-hour workday. It's a 22-hour workday for that week to get it done. And I was surprised, but also happy and relieved to find out that it's not faked. Like, there's not a swarm of mechanics that come in when the cameras get turned off or anything like that. Like, it's legitimately, hey, Derek, good luck. Let us know when there's something cool to film. We're going to be over here.
We're here. Turn this GoPro on. We're going to go to the motel.
Yeah. So it's it's a lot of work, but it was tough to get used to because one episode of Roadworthy Rescues for us would be like a 5-part series to get to that point, because I'm used to having to order the parts and receive them, and Jessica would check them in and pay the invoice and make sure we got everything and stage it, and then we'd plan it out. Okay, this is going to be this episode and this episode. Well, here's the car, here's a mountain of parts, here's stuff that you know how to fix, weld, bend, or whatever. Here's parts from your junkyard. Do the thing to the car, and then it's just, you have to focus and just get it done. So that was the biggest shock for me, I guess, just in the sense of getting used to it. But also, I get a lot of positive feedback that it's nice to see cars wrapped up in one episode, where some of ours still aren't finished from 4 years ago.
Right.
Because we get so busy that we just, to be honest, dropped the ball on being able to schedule them back in. So I would say that's the biggest change for us, is the short windows.
Jessica, anything else, because I know your role in the show is, I mean, you're definitely another face on the show, and sometimes, actively you're putting seam sealer on the Mustang, and sometimes you're so what's, from your perspective, and same question to you, anything about most eye-opening moment from a production side?
I guess really kind of the same as Derek's, just how fast-paced it is. From getting it, like he was saying, right out of the tree row and then running immediately. And so then in that instance, he gets it running and driving, gets it to the shop. But then there's more to do to it. So we're not really used to that part of it either, where it's kind of like on Vice Grip, he gets it running, fixes pretty much all the problems that are wrong with it, or fixes along the way home, or, it's a little bit different here. So that's been a different change for us as well. But I don't know. And then as far as like my role, you know, you've seen me here and there on there. I'm not, unfortunately, I'm going to be in every episode, and that's mostly because when he has to travel out of town, you know, we've got kids and stuff, so I can't be on those episodes.
Well, you're also still running Vice Grip Garage in the
and
background.
I'm here
So when
doing that too. So
a lot of people didn't realize, you know, when the show came out. So I was working full time for Motor Trend and Vice Grip Garage. So we would film all day and then I would film all night, or vice versa, or whatever. So and we never missed an episode of Vice Grip Garage. It's a vow that we made to ourselves that we're not going to sacrifice our viewers on YouTube. They subscribe for free content. We're going to provide that. But it was a tremendous amount of work to film a TV show, keep up with family, plus film the YouTube. And Jessica's the glue behind that, because, you know, I would get back from a shoot and she would have everything lined up, organized, ready, parts and pieces. Here's the schedule, you know, a pat on the back and a bologna sandwich, and good luck, you know. So yeah, I'd say obviously you got a lot more busy too.
Yeah,
but
yeah, I think it probably took us 3 or 4 episodes to be wrapped to really kind of get into the groove of things, just because it was so fast paced and we were not used to the constant go. But I mean, now that we're used to it and whatever, I think we've got it down and got it figured out a little bit more.
Yeah, it's fun. I mean, we are, as you are as well, and I know you agree, we're blessed to be able to play with cars, and people watch us do it and appreciate it, and we're just so lucky and blessed to be doing what we're doing.
We really are. Yeah.
Well, I think I can second everything you said from the inverse perspective, where I don't have a ton of free time. The most successful thing I guess what I'm trying to say, the most successful thing on YouTube is that people love to live vicariously through you. Like I had one member or one fan for the longest time. He wound up messaging me on Facebook, and I found out he told me he had multiple sclerosis and he used to love to work on cars, but just over the years, obviously, he just kind of debilitated. And so like that changed things for me. But because people are vicariously living through like your channel and they want what you're doing, even though they're not capable, whether it's from a time standpoint, financial standpoint, physical health standpoint, motivation standpoint, whatever it is, that instant gratification is the thing that excels the most. Like, so to complete a car in one episode is like that gold mine for people. I live the opposite of that, where it's like I probably work about 5 hours every Sunday, because you know, when you're trying to balance family life, work life, all that thing, there's only, you know, could I be out in the garage more weeknights? Sure, but there's trying to spend quality time with family, and that's not the most successful formula, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. So
well, you have to find the balance that works for your life. I mean, not everybody can be in the garage, or you know, everybody has different goals and wants and needs and desires, and I was lucky enough that when my boys were very young, they were in the garage with me from the get-go, which was a blessing for me, because if they hadn't been, I would have been in the house with my children, you know, because that's always priority. But from the time that they could walk, they wanted to sit out there and hand me the wrong tool and drop things and
misplace
cut
things.
Yes, you know, and I let them. And today, I'd say 2 out of the 3 are pretty avid hot rodders, and we let them, you know, be creative and do what they want to do. And our other kid, we support what he wants to do, and it's thankfully all working out for us. So, but long story short, don't feel like you're doing it wrong. I think you're doing it right by prioritizing family time and your career over cars, but you got to sneak in cars like you are when you can.
For sure. Well, I know one of the big perks about the Tennessee move is it's not too different than Kansas in the sense that it's kind of right in the middle of the country, so it puts you within range for multiple things and proximity wise, and I know one of those kind of what we're seeing more and more out of Ice Grip is the Cletus and Cars events and things like that. So I guess talk about some of the perks of being in Tennessee, as far as it's kind of double dipping on a previous comment, right? Like to get more entrenched in that car community, the people that you've been interacting with. What's it been like to be closer, be more of an epicenter to events like that?
Yeah, when we jot it down on paper, when we have our board meetings, which means coffee on the porch. When we put it on paper, that was one of the pluses or perks of moving out here. Is it really is. We basically landed in the nucleus, the center of all of the automotive stuff. I mean, when you look at NHRA tracks or circle tracks or speedways or any Holly events or the Cletus events or whatever it may be, we're 5 to 8 hours, or in some cases less, from anything.
Mm-hmm.
So we can mobilize and move quicker. And we learned really fast to, in making a career out of YouTube, it's every minute counts. It's not hours or like a day. It's like every minute counts if you're going to maximize the time. I used to drive an hour one way to the shop. So 2 hours a day I was driving, and we figured out I was losing 32 or 33 days a year of my life just commuting. And then you roll that into, well, what could I have I produced to motivate people? Or how many cars could I have saved? Or what kind of family time could I have spent with that? So when we were looking at moving, again, that kind of ticked the boxes where, well, hey, if we end up somewhere around Nashville, we're super connected to pretty much everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Where it would take us 3 days to get somewhere, then the event, then 3 days back, and we'd sit down on paper and go, we lost 6 days of travel. That's insane.
Yeah.
When we're the income of the business, and we can't be, motivating people or doing what we'd like to do sitting behind the wheels. So that was also definitely a blessing for us, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you talked about the negative 376-degree winters there in South Dakota, Minnesota. One of the things, as you guys were talking about all of your snow escapades, is I had a coworker once upon a time. She was from Wisconsin, and she was the first person I learned the term. And I'm going to just test this out here, see if this was a Minnesota, if it made it over to Minnesota, South Dakota. But I'd never heard the term whip a shitty before. Is that?
Yeah.
That's part of the vernacular. Okay, so for those of you,
it's a less precise or classical version of a cookie or donut. Whipping a shitty just means hold my beer. We're gonna go. The car's gonna do something. I don't really know what, but it's gonna
do the thing.
We're gonna
twirly.
do the thing. Yeah,
it is. Yeah.
And usually you grab the oh shit handle before you whip a shitty.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that's
definitely a thing.
It's accurate. Yeah.
All right. Well, good to know. The company I work for now, they have an office up in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. So just I'll really impress somebody at the holiday party now if I just throw that out there. So appreciate the validation. Well, honestly, all the questions I had jotted down, I've kind of like run through, and we usually try to open it up to the chat if they have questions for our guests. We like to give them a chance to interject some, and I'll be honest, flying solo tonight, it's been a little hard to divulge in the chat a whole lot, but I'll try my best to try to look out for people's questions. I know King Eric's Greatest of All did ask me what do they say in Kansas. Well, we just called donut. That's what we call that. So we're pretty simple, just 2 syllables. But
so is cookie Eastern then, and donut is Western?
I don't know.
And whip a shitty is Midwestern. I feel like we need to get like a map out and draw some lines.
A heat map.
Yeah, like time zones, but for cookies.
So I also had a college classmate. She was from Minnesota in architecture school who we had a bunch of like Missourians in architecture school because they got out of state tuition. And so here in Kansas, we call it pop. We call carbonated beverages pop. And we found out that she up in Minnesota called it that. So there was some sort of like equator or vertical like ridge, like the what's the where the rivers flow to different oceans. There's something like that where we need a map for. So I guess I'll ask that question: is it Coke? Is it pop? Is it soda pop? Is it soda? What is it up in Minnesota, South Dakota?
I have always said soda.
Yeah.
I've always said soda.
It's soda or soda pop.
But
way up there.
Here it's Coke. Everything is a Coke, and
Yep.
so we have to remember that when we're out. Like if we want an actual Coke, and we'll say, "We'll have a Coke, please." I'm like, well, what? Which
you have to
one?
say Coca-Cola,
Like,
or if you're
Coke.
like, "I'll have a Sprite," they look at you like, "What?
You didn't start
Would
that,
you like
right?
a Coke?" And I'm like, "Yes, I'd like a Coke flavored Sprite." And you're like, "Oh,
yeah,
okay, got it." So yeah, we're still learning all the
lingo,
turnip greens and grits and all the different vernaculars now. We don't have time to go out ever in public, so when we do, it's extremely awkward.
Well, luckily our kids are they're in public school, so they pick up on all that stuff, and they have to say yes ma'am, yes sir. They get in trouble at school if they don't talk that way, so they had to pick up on that pretty quickly. And so if they're out at restaurants with us or something, they kind of,
which is great,
tell us how to talk, or like we'll let them lead the way so that we could just sound smart talking after them.
Yep.
Well, if you ever find yourself at a Dunkin' Donuts in Murfreesboro, once upon a time I did a little work in my internship to make that a reality. So
awesome.
right across from right across from the Nissan plant there. But we did get a question from Buff's Garage and wants to know, are there any... Well, okay, so I know that we can't necessarily divulge first on the Car Guy and SixFan show upcoming content, but we have a Pontiac fan here in the chat, but so maybe not for the Motor Trend side of things, but we'll say for Vice Grip Garage, any forthcoming Pontiacs.
Not sure if he's seen the one on Roadworthy Rescues yet, but we just did a Pontiac Le Mans with the OHC6 in it, and it disgruntled a lot of people, but I kept a 6-cylinder. We hopped it up with a Clifford intake and fuel injected 4-barrel and headers and stuff like that. That was a really fun episode. We're still working on the Pontiac GTO on Vice Grip Garage. We're fixing to give that back to the original owner, who doesn't know it's missing still.
Mm-hmm.
We'll probably be releasing that one in December, which is going to be a lot of fun. I am in the works of potentially buying myself a GTO. However, I've found out that they are like, you could buy a double wide trailer or a GTO. They're extremely expensive, and I'm kind of liking the double wide idea, but she says we don't have room for it. So,
well, your neighbor Dave Ramsey will tell you the GTO is going to appreciate more than the mobile home. I know that much.
Yeah,
I know that much. We did get another question from Country Boy Gas Garage, who's asking, "Hey, Derek and Jessica, do you still get a date night together?"
Shoot.
Yeah, rarely.
No.
We did have a nice breakfast the other day. We have a lot of meetings to run the business. A lot of people don't realize. which is great. I don't want them to be thinking about that. I want them to enjoy the show and be entertained and have fun. But behind the scenes, we're dealing with vendors and merchants and companies, and we're bidding and quoting and invoicing and paying bills and have insurance and overheads and changing utilities and purchasing parts and navigating and planning and scheduling. And so we meet daily. So we try to use that time to also be like, hey, how are you?
But we also we work together, not every day out in the shop, but like this week we've been out together in the shop. So I guess just because we're not sitting down eating steak together, doesn't mean we get time hanging out. Yeah, we definitely still get time together.
Yeah. This coming year, we're planning on doing, which one are we doing without the kids? Sick Week?
Yes, in February.
Yeah, we're going to do Sick Week in February without the kids, Jessica and I. So that's going to be a really fun week for us to just relax and enjoy each other's company and do some drag racing. Yes.
Yes,
It's gonna
I'm
be fun.
excited.
Actually, you're drag racing.
Yeah, we'll see.
Oh, that'll be awesome content for
Yeah.
sure. Before I get to the next question that we have in here, I did just want to say thanks to Paul Meyer who bailed me out. I was trying to think of Continental Divide there earlier, so appreciate that. Fox Can Fix It Garage asks, will there be another Christmas bus adventure?
I am still so bummed that video has like the least views out of any video, and it is the funniest. Like, our boys still put that video on and we just crack up every time we watch it.
We were just talking about insurance. It cost me over $800 for 1 day of insurance on that bus. When I explained what we were doing, my insurance guy was like, I just sign here and leave immediately. I was like, okay. I would love to, probably not. Hindsight, the chainsaws and the mini bikes and the might have been a little too far as danger goes.
Yeah.
But we definitely want to do something first and foremost for charity.
Mhm.
And then if we can wrap it into, I've had ideas like cutting the roof off a limo and making it into a pool and then delivering presents that way. Or
At Christmas time?
Yes.
Oh gosh. It's
I
In
know.
Tennessee, yeah. No.
no, it's still cold.
Just like have a fun or like a challenge of some kind, or just try to make it fun, but have it end up being, we're delivering or doing something when it comes to charity. Unfortunately, now we're way out by ourselves. Our family is, 20 hours away from us now.
Yeah, like a full day's drive
So
away from us.
It's going to be a little bit more difficult, but I guess never say never. I would love to. That is one of my absolute favorite videos.
Oh, so much
We
fun.
had so much fun on that.
Yeah.
Well, our next question. Well, before we get to our next question, I did want to say, for all the flack you got for hopping up in inline six, you know that here at Straight Six Fan, we'll fully support
Yeah.
all 6-cylinder endeavors you want to come up with.
Yeah.
In fact, so much so that my dream for my Grand Prix project was like, I wanted to create an alternate path for our friend John DeLorean. And take like a new Atlas motor, or new, they're 20 years old now, but a 4.2 liter Atlas motor from like a Trailblazer. And I think like if John DeLorean started to see himself, if he was still at Pontiac in the late 70s, early 80s, and he started to see Buick outpacing him with the turbo V6 Grand National, I was like, what would he do? And so I believe he would have dusted off that overhead Cam Pontiac motor and slapped turbos on that. So that's always been my kind of dream. But
they're good engines.
Yeah, it just probably, I'm sure finding parts for him's a challenge.
It is. Yeah.
Our friend, so neighbor of mine, Will's Wheels asks, being a very small YouTube channel, how would someone like him value his channel when looking for a sponsorship? Don't want to ask for too much or too little.
That's a great question.
It is a really good question.
Do you know how big his channel is or what size?
I would say he's probably, and Will, you can correct us if I'm wrong, but I think probably around 1,500, probably maybe getting close to 2,000. I would think.
Okay. So you're only worth what you think you're worth, and you're worth the effort you put in. And I mean, you have to sit down at the end of the day and just say, how much would I pay myself, or what is my self-worth when it comes to business? And to be completely honest, I don't really have a very good answer for that, because we deleted emails until we were probably 250 to 300,000 subscribers, because we were so terrified of losing not necessarily our brand, but our way, I guess. We didn't want to change or affect how the channel came across. And then it does get to a certain point where, when you become a larger channel, you're spending thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars just on operating costs that, you have to get into that realm. But I would say, starting out for any channel, trading your services, and services being, your ability to advertise and market for parts or whatever piece that they have or whatever values your channel, is a really good start.
Absolutely.
So, if they say we'll give you something at cost, you'd say, thank you for the offer, I'm not interested. And there's a lot of power in saying no over
100%.
saying yes. And if you say no 2 times, they'll be back the 3rd time and you'll get a better deal. So don't sell yourself short, but I would say if you're 1,500 or even 50,000 or under, if you're willing to find and they're willing to cooperate with you and you can trade your services for whatever product they have, I think that's a really good deal, especially when some of this stuff, for example, if it's a fuel make it happen or company, a carburetor anymore is $500,
Yeah,
$600. I mean, that's a big chunk of change.
Yeah.
So, but just focus on having a constant, continual message, be consistent, and people will start searching you out. Is his name Will, I would assume?
Yeah. Yep.
Will. Yeah. So, but the biggest thing, and I've seen a couple other questions on here about the same thing about what kind of content to make or whatever. You have to stay with doing what makes you happy. Don't make videos to try to get on the trending box or whatever it is. Don't make things to try to just get views, because you're going to burn out, you're going to lose interest, and it's not who you are. So a lot of people ask, like, why did you save a Mercury Marquise? Or why did you? Because it's what I want to do. Like, it's not a popular car. No one cares about it. The views aren't good. But I don't really care, because I want to save the car, because that's, what I want to do. It's what I do.
And the thing is you're going to get negative feedback no matter what you do. There's always going to be people who have something to say that you're not happy about. So really, you have to do what you want to do or what makes you happy, because like Derek said, otherwise you're just going to be miserable and, trying to always mold yourself to fit other people's needs, and you're still going to get that negative feedback. So it's going to be there one way or the other. So you may as well just stick to your guns and do what makes you happy.
Yeah. Long story short, starting out, just try to trade for product or what you can. YouTube has a really neat feature now. Once you're monetized, I don't know where to find it. I think it's under the monetization tab. They will make you because this is good information for any of the YouTubers watching.
I think you
right
can
now.
screen share if you.
Let's see. Where?
Well, and Derek, while you're trying to find that, I'll second a lot of what he just said. Is that I've had, I wouldn't call them sponsorship opportunities, but you get those random emails like, well, this isn't like cool, great, I'm flattered, this is not a good fit for my channel. Like, it'll be obvious I'm going out of my way to promote these LED headlights that I wasn't going to install anyway. So, thanks, but no thanks kind of a thing, and then, but I had successfully, like when I had my Fairmont project, I traded a local machine shop. I found a set of GT40P heads. They needed to be machined, and, new valves and all that stuff. And I said, hey, if I do kind of a documentary style feature on you and your business and put that up on my channel, would you, they quoted me a price, and then I offered them, after they quoted me a price, I think I maybe negotiated 20% off or something of the machine work. And, that goes a long way when you're trying to do a budget.
Oh,
build.
yeah, absolutely.
It does.
Yeah. I mean, it especially, money, $1 today is, in my opinion, worth way more than 10 years ago. $500 is a big chunk of change anymore. I found it. It's a monetization tab. And then if you click on Brand Connect, and then on the right-hand side, there should be a box that says Media Kit. And if you click on View Media Kit, YouTube has created all of your key channel statistics, demographics, audience interests, and shopping interests for you. And you can take that and save it as a PDF and send it to ABC Company. Like, here's what I'm about. Put in a little paragraph. This is my goal. This is what I'm willing to do in exchange for X. And the worst that can happen is they say no.
Yeah.
And then just try again the next day.
Well, since we promised you we'd keep it under an hour, we have time for one last question, and I know there's a bunch in there, so I'm going to try my best to kind of consolidate at least two into one, to the last one. So everything Broken Garage is asking what's the one car that got away, and Fox Can Fix It earlier had asked a similar question, which was, is there a unicorn, a car that you're still out there looking for, Derek? But so let's stick with either, you can go either way or answer both. What's the one car that got away, and what's the one that you're still searching for?
I think the car that got away, we were talking about this the other day. Was it the 67 Camaro?
That one, but also the Suburban.
Oh yeah,
Longmire. There's a few.
There's a few. They were all builds before YouTube. So like I had explained, how I kept my hobby alive for 2 decades is I would build something, then sell it, take the proceeds to buy another one, and keep doing that. And those were all builds in there. 66 long bed lowered pickup, 4-speed 6-cylinder, 88 Suburban, extreme low miles, I think 44,000.
That was so pretty.
67 Camaro that I hopped up with a 327 4-speed caged, all new sheet metal. Those are all pretty good ones. The car that I was on my bucket list and I was really yearning for, I was lucky enough to have just picked up, and that is a Grand National. And that'll be on the channel this Friday at 7 p.m. Central Time. So as of right now, my heart is still. Yeah, I like your shirt there. I noticed that.
Yeah, I'm an architect as my day job, and so I'm a sucker for like really awesome graphics, and I've always loved the Grand National Turbo V6.
Yeah.
So ingenious. Like, they tell me, when a logo can tell you like 3 things without even having to ask, it's like you did it right. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, all right. Well, Jessica, Derek, thank you so much for your time and being gracious enough to come on for a second appearance here on the CarrGuy SixFan show. It is our greatest hits episode, and kind of just it's great to have some of the most popular guests come back, and really enjoyed my time. I just wanted to say thanks, and if you have anything else to say to the rest of the group, by all means, the floor is now yours.
Well, first of all, great job flying solo. You did awesome tonight.
Yeah, and thank you for having us.
And thanks everyone for tuning in. Appreciate it. You got a nice, strong following, and appreciate everybody's time. And maybe we'll be back for Trace at some point. We'll see. Did you have fun?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Good. Yeah.
Well, that's gonna do it for Dose, and we'll call it a show.
All right. Thanks, guys.